Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of the North Star podcast. Today, we have my good friend Krish from Kin Consulting. I'm just going to leave it up to Krish on to who he is and what he does. And everyone, welcome Krish.
Thank you for having me, Jeremy, on the North Star podcast. This is exciting.
I'm excited to have you, man.
My name is Krish, like Jeremy mentioned, and we're right now inside of King Consulting, which is a clinic that I own. And what I do here is I just kind of help people feel better. Now, whether that's injuries they're dealing with, trying to improve in their sport, trying to improve their body composition, I'm just here to kind of help provide them a skill set to, train better, to move throughout pain or move without pain. Uh, and yeah, my whole life's pretty much been around this theme. Like it's never been one specific thing I've had my eyes kind of set on, but it's always been around whether it was training, supplements, coaching. It's just been trying to help people. And as I get older, I think the mediums change as my knowledge changes and how I can do that. But right now, I'm in a spot where this is what I've found is helping people the best.
Well, and like you're saying, like things always shift, right? So it's like, what you might have been doing 10 years ago have probably shifted a
Absolutely.
lot since now, right? So,
Completely.
and we're both very similar in the way of like we got into this to help people, and I'm more of trainer, nutrition kind of stuff. You still have that background as well, but what really got you into this like industry? Like why this industry out of any other industry that's available?
I think what got me into let's just call it the rehab side of things,
Yeah.
was my own personal experience.
Okay.
So at first, it wasn't that exciting for me to get into rehab because when I was training and competing, I would go to like physio or RMT. They would do a couple things, and the experience was very uninspiring. It was kind of like going to like a physio mill where they just kind of like, okay, here, sit on this table. What's
Yeah.
hurting? Here's a TENS unit. Here's some heat. Here's an elbow in your butt for like 5 minutes, and then like off you go, kind of thing, right? So the last thing I wanted to do was just be part of that same system.
Yeah.
And eventually, I had my own injuries. I had already finished my education. I tore my pec, and one of my friends that I went to school with, she was doing this kind of service, right? And all I knew was that she had given me these like one free treatment cards. And back then I was managing a nutrition store. So anytime someone came to me for like joint pain or problems, I would just try to like plug her and be like, oh, hey, by the way, this might help you. Here's a free
Here's
treatment.
try it out. Yeah.
And then I never went myself. I was just like, here, let me just help, right?
Yeah.
And then I tore my pec and I'm like, well, time to call in a favor. So I sent a message. I was like, hey, is there anything that you can do that could help me? And she's like, yeah, come by. We can do some laser. We can do some like kind of more passive things because I couldn't move my arm. It's not like I can exercise right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, like we didn't learn laser in school. We didn't learn like blading in school. Like, how are you doing this? Because we have the same bachelor's, right? And she's like, oh, we are given the scope, like we're given the ability to do these things, but you still have to go and get the certification. And once I learned that, it kind of opened my eyes. It's like I don't have to be just a heat intense guy. I can go and like kind of develop my own skill set. And like that was so interesting to me. And then it became like, oh shit, I can kind of make this more into like an artistic thing, more into my style. And it was just like your coaching, right? It's like you have your own style, like those things you pick up over time that you tend to like to give your clients, right? And I think that's what got me interested in the industry was the fact that I could do it my way. It's not the industry itself, it's not the job itself. If I was to be a kinesiologist somewhere else, I wouldn't have the same satisfaction. It's not what I do, it's how I do it. And I think if you can express yourself through your job, then I think that's what gives you fulfillment. It's how you do things, you know?
Yeah, and it's like you're saying, it's you have your own craft, you have your own uniqueness to your thing, right? And I think that really stands out because the more you can stay true to yourself, the more you can help other people around you, and then they can help other people as well, right?
Absolutely.
When you make, like, you've probably seen this, when you make someone else pain free or you help them get pain free, they're such a happier person. They're like more outgoing, right? I think something I'm really curious about, like, what are some really common things you tend to see with people that you help out, and what are some people that you really like to help? Like, is there a certain clientele that you like, or are you someone who kind of just takes whatever case that they find? Like, what's your biggest piece there when you're looking at individuals as a whole?
So I feel like there's a few questions there. I'll go with what you just said last because that's what I remember right now. I think part of that is there's nothing that I'll say no to.
Okay, cool.
right?
Cool.
If someone's in pain and they want help, I'm not going to discriminate.
Yeah,
Like
for
I don't
sure.
want to discriminate pain. It's like, oh, that's not as like interesting to me to work on your neck or your feet. Like I just want to, like I said, the whole point of this was to help people feel better. So
Yeah.
I'm going to do whatever you want me to do if I can do it. And then that first part of your question, can you repeat that? Like,
Yeah.
it was a
So
good question.
yeah, it was just based off of like, we like, for example, for me, I give, I don't feel as comfortable treating or training like competitors.
Right.
Or like power lifters. Like I don't feel as comfortable. Is there anything that stands out to you that you feel like over the years you've been able to really like help someone in ways that
Okay, yeah.
that you feel comfortable or that you feel like you've mastered? You're like, you know what? If you come with me with this thing,
Yeah.
like I can totally help you.
I think the biggest thing I've learned over the years is to help people avoid the pain avoidance cycle, which is when someone comes and they injure themselves, they have this idea, which is pretty much just passed on from other people, that, oh, I hurt my back, I shouldn't lift or I shouldn't do this.
I can't do anything.
And what happens is the more you avoid something, like you're afraid to drive on the main road here, McCallum. The more you avoid McCallum, the fear for McCallum Road grows. So the next time you go, you're even tighter, and the next time, and then next thing you know, it's been 3 years since you've driven on the road, and now you're just completely afraid. And now take that instead of McCallum, and now we're talking about deadlifts.
Yeah.
It's like I think that's the biggest thing I've learned is like to help people break down those barriers. Now, how we break down those barriers, it can be through treatment where we're actually putting, like, whether it's cups, blades, all that is different forms of bringing a stimulus on your body, a sensory stimulus to the brain integrating that stimulus, and then providing something else outward. So it's like, if I rub on your knee, when you bump your knee, like how we like rub on it, something else is going to the brain and the body perceives that. And now we're not feeling the pain, and instead we're feeling that. So obviously the treatments are a little bit more nuanced. It's not just like I'm, blowing on a fucking boo-boo. Yeah. But like, like here's a dinosaur sticker. Oh, you're good. It's a little bit nuanced. But I think whether it's through the treatment, whether it's through the education, talking about, oh no, like, discomfort's okay, we can move through this. Or it's a combination of those, like empowering, giving the treatment, letting them know, okay, this kind of exercise is okay. Maybe let's avoid this position for now while we work on this position until we're ready. But I think that's the biggest thing I've learned is like less to do with the actual modalities and more to do with the mindset, because the modalities fit within that mindset. Like everything has to come together. And like one of the questions that you had brought up was like, I think it was one of those questions, a very dogmatic question in the sense that like, is it contextual driven? Is it this driven? Is it that? Like, of course, like placebo and those things are big factors. Now, if the goal is to help the client, are we going to not consider those factors? Like it depends, right? And,
sure.
and in that study that you had brought up, 46% was for there to be a pain reduction with an exercise. There was still a lack of an effect of context. So like what that meant was when you're doing manipulations or like chiropractic adjustments, if I'm telling you how you're going to feel, 86% of that, technically according to this meta-analysis, was saying that because of what I've given you around the manipulation, the treatment, the expectation, the conversation, that's what's making this manipulation effective. 86% of it's everything outside of just the manipulation, which kind of shows like maybe the manipulation on its own isn't that effective, right? And then it was 46 or 50% for exercise, meaning like, shit, like exercise only is half as effective unless you give people context. Like it's kind of interesting, right? But regardless, I just think you have to include everything together. And I know I went on a tangent there, but
no, I just think it's good that you said that, because a lot of times, when somebody comes to either of us, they expect us to fix the problem right away. Right? It's like an instant, it's like, I have knee pain, fix me now.
Yeah.
It's like, well, okay, 100%. Like, how do we get you to the point where first you, like you were saying, I like the analogy about like you're on the road, and if you're scared to go down that road and you eventually get to a point where you're so fearful of going down that road, it's going to be harder and harder for you to now manage and understanding your pain, at going in to the gym or whatever to make a difference. So I really value that too, as a professional in this, because a lot of times I had a hard time as well with, going into an appointment and crack adjustment or tense machine, then on my way. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, like, what did I learn?
Absolutely.
There's
Yeah.
there's no application. So based on all that and what you do for your appointments, what are some unique practices that you use that maybe other kinesiologists don't use? What are some things that you've found to really be benefit to people?
Now, I don't think there's anything specifically that I do that might be different.
Okay.
I just think I set myself in an environment where I can do everything that we've learned. And what I mean by that is giving myself enough of a time period where I can get to these things, where I can actually understand, have 30 minutes while I'm working on someone that they're telling me this is my workout split, this is what I do, this is what I've done before. I think having that, like, because I do 30-minute grace between my clients. You got chiros where the treatment's only 15 minutes.
Yeah.
My break between clients is 30 minutes. That means someone can come 10 minutes late and leave 20 minutes after the treatment. Like we just did an extra 20 minutes of talking after. And it's still within my time block. Like I think that's the difference is I've structured the facility and the booking in a way that people get the actual time needed for me to express everything we've learned. And it's just like, for example, I like this analogy is like, people go into policing with good intentions and it's a system that fails them. It's like the justice system or this system, it's like, well, they'll catch the culprit, they put them in the jail, but then they're only holding them for like 1 or 2 days and then they get out. Now, does that police officer obviously want to make a genuine difference to his community? Of course, that's why he got into it. But there's systems, right? People like are always like talk shit about modern doctors, right? It's like, dude, that guy didn't go to 15 fucking years of schooling just to prescribe pills, but he's got 30 people he has to see in an hour, 5 minutes to each one. What can he possibly do? And it's like, are we gonna just like further like shit? Obviously the guy's crushed, he knows he can't do that good of a job. So I think these guys, they go to the schooling, they have the right intentions and the knowledge is there. I don't think I'm particularly more knowledgeable than the next kinesiologist. I don't. I just think I have a system where it allows me to express that knowledge. Like you got an hour, you got an hour and a half. I can maybe in the last 10 minutes you tell me something that's so important to this treatment about like the injury you had and I just think that time and that ability to actually listen, like those are things that separate me. Is I actually prioritize those intangibles, whereas there's people that talk about it but then they still have like these 15-minute treatments, everything's fucking online. Like it's like, if you're going to talk about the importance of human touch, if you're going to talk about the importance of these things, then are you actually doing that? Or are you just talking about it and referencing studies? Like, I don't understand, right? Like that's the difference in my opinion, is like behaving like what you do,
Yeah, like being the person that you like, because it's very easy online, like you said, to be someone that you're not. Right?
Absolutely,
and it's like my biggest thing for my stuff is like what you see online. It's what I try to represent as a person, right?
Totally.
Like, and again, we all have our different like ways of doing things and whatever. But I think the more that you can be someone that can be of trust, if you've never met the person before and they're either watching your content or they find you on a different platform or anything, you can also show up and be the same person that you were and that what you preach.
Absolutely.
Because that's the people that are going to follow you for a long time. And going off of that, that's actually a good transition because I want to talk about some of your clients. You don't have to say names, obviously, for liability, but like what are some cool, or what's like a success story that really stands out to you that, you've been able to see in someone, or what really gives you that like fire when you're like, oh man, I really was able to help this person with this and see them change. Like what really gives you that passion to keep going as someone in this field?
I think, I don't know why this is, and this was a lot more true when I first started, because when you first start a business or a service, you don't have that work resume, right?
Yeah.
So I was getting a lot of clients where I was kind of the last resort. It's like, well, he's offering something I haven't tried, which at the time was cupping, and they had already tried like maybe certain modalities or treatments or therapists. And they would come to me and be like, yeah, I'm just willing to try this. And it had nothing to do with me. It was just like, let's just try cupping, and they had already been to like 6 different people. And what was really fulfilling to me was the fact that I could see someone and ask them like what helped, what didn't, and they list everything that didn't help. And it was like, oh, this is great. I know all these things that this person's not buying into. Here's what I can provide. And I think that education side of things, really explaining what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, what we want to get out of this, and then providing a treatment on top of that, I think is what really helped. And some of those like interesting cases, like, man, I think there's just so many to say, but I've dealt with people that have had like torn muscles. I've had people that have had legit like disc replacements. One of my clients is one of the only like 2 people to get like a full, like, I think it was 3 disc replacement in her lower back. She only trusted me with it.
Wow.
Like I've dealt with like nerve ablations where like they just literally cut off the nerve because of the pain so bad, and then the muscles around it start to stiffen up because there's not enough innervation, like not enough activation to those muscles. So like some of those super complex issues to like some issues where it's like older women working in freezers packing, and now they have frozen shoulder because like it's just the same repetitive movement in a really shitty environment, and like their quality of life is so bad they can't cook anymore. They literally have to go to work because that's financially burdened, and to be able to give them that life back, it's really nice. I think one of them was one of these younger wrestlers. He tore his shoulder, his rotator cuff, came to me literally like this, and then over the span of a few treatments, he went from, I think, placing 3rd at BCs as he's slowly getting his strength back, slowly going through rehab. Then he got like 2nd or something at nationals, qualified to like Pan Americans, and then he won Pan Americans. So for him to go from placing 3rd at BCs to beating America's best wrestler, which is like a population of like 350 million, and someone from Abbotsford doing that, like, and to be part of that whole rehab to the point where he's like, am I even going to be able to use this shoulder, to the point where he's like, I'm the strongest
confident.
I've ever been. And he just beat the best and fucking, and that mindset change that went through that is wild, bro.
Well, and it gives them the confidence.
Exactly.
It's huge. And
exactly.
And that's kind of goes back to like we were saying about like a little bit of like a placebo kind of thing. It's like sometimes just by shifting someone's confidence in how they are.
Man, that's the best thing you could say, because this exact client, right? He told me, so they have like Team Canada appointed like a physiotherapist to travel with them. And so they were at Pan Ams or they're at Worlds, right? And they have this team physio. And so he's going with the bug shoulder. This is like a few meets before this, right? Yeah. And he's like, yo, can you like tape it? Can you do something, right? And then the lady, she's like this new age kind of like physio, right? She's like, well, this is how we want to move our shoulder, and these are the exercises you want to do. And he's like, bitch, I know how to fucking train.
Yeah.
Like, do something, rub it, fix it. Like, this is what they want. And I think a lot of these therapists now are trying to be like that exercise specialist. It's like, you do realize when you work with high level clientele, and I work with lots, they have a strength and conditioning coach. Yeah. You're a chiropractor. You're a physiotherapist. You're not a strength and conditioning coach. You're out here trying to if I came to you as a client, are you going to give me like band extensions? Are you going to give me this? Like I'm trying to get my bench to 400 from 300. Like what skills can you give me to get from that? Like,
yeah, you don't want to.
Yeah, I don't want to know about like the basics, right? Like, it's like, I get it. Just like, can you do something to pain gate? Like, you got to know where your client's at, right? And a lot of time we look down on that because it looks cheap. It's easy. It's a trick. Yeah. It's like, but what does the client need? What's the context behind that? And is it a placebo? And man, they've shown with placebo effects, even when you tell someone it's a placebo after the fact, there's still an effect, which is crazy. It's like, look, this Advil wasn't an Advil, it was a sugar pill. And that person's like, oh shit, that's why I was feeling better. And then they'll still want to take the sugar pill. It's like you tell someone a supplement, research comes out, BCAAs don't work. And their whole life they were taking BCAAs. And like they'll still buy BCAAs. And you're like, what the hell? We just showed that it doesn't work. Why are you still buying it? But it means something to them, right? Yeah, and if they have a definite increase, I don't know. I mean, I stopped using BCAAs. I'm very like into the evidence-based stuff. Like if there's not enough research, like I feel like if I get told something that's a sham, it's hard for me to buy in. But if someone has a ritual, whether it's coming here, whether it's like a meditation or something that helps them, and it's not evidence backed, and it helps them, keep doing it, man. Because like, what's the goal of your life? Is it to be a better athlete, or is it just to have the best evidence informed practice?
Well, and they talk about that with athletes and like pregame meals. Right? Like some will have the same pregame meal no matter what. Yeah. And a lot of it, like if we look at it, it's probably not the best digestively. Not the best, right? Or it's probably not the best nutritionally, but it's that psychological piece that's so huge. Right. Is if they were to have something different, their whole game might change. Yeah. Like their whole atmosphere and how they look at it, right?
And I think the argument is like, do we neglect that and just make it all about the stuff that we can control for? Like how we would in a study? Or do we emphasize that and start to learn everyone's psychology and try to maximize those things that speak to them. Like when someone comes to me and they're talking about spirituality and they're talking about those things, they come in here thinking cupping is a old practice, ancient practice. They're coming because it's like, I want to try something that that they did in like old, like Middle East, or that they did in like in China. Like I want to try. And then I have to start talking in terms of like, okay, yeah, well, this is what they believed in. They believed in ki. They believed in meridians. They believed in energy. And I meet them where they're at because that's what they believe in. I'll tell them whether I also believe in that. I'll say, this is what the Eastern philosophy is on this practice, and Western is in more in terms of like, say, connective tissue and looking at things versus in a diagnostic kind of perspective.
Yeah.
And I give them that. I'm not saying this is the only way, but you got to meet people where they are. And if they can buy into the treatment, the whole point of me is to get someone better, you know? I'm not lying in the sense saying like, oh, this is toxins being removed and stuff like that. I'll say this is what that practice believes in, and it's up to them at that point to buy in or not, you know?
Well, it's the whole concept of like there is no one size fits all.
Well, exactly. And I don't want to be that guy being like, oh, everything you learned is bullshit. Like, you know, it's like, man, perspective is crazy, right?
Huge. And I want another little shift here because you had mentioned like you help a lot of influential people, and we don't have to name names or anything, but I know you've worked with some very influential people, and I really want to know, like, people that are listening, if they're starting a business or they're someone who wants to get around people that are influential, like, how did you put yourself in those situations? Like, how did you get in front of those people? How did you, get, your name or you as an individual in that environment? Like, what are some things that stand out?
You know what? And this is so contrary to what we see, is I was just myself. I never had the intention to attract a certain type of clientele. I just wanted people to come to me for me. That was it, man. And like, people just kind of fuck with that. Certain people,
for sure. 100%.
And the people that don't, then that's okay. But the people that did, I think people go to people that they recognize certain qualities in. And so for me, just being myself, not trying to do anything else. My first videos were literally me in my parents' basement showing how to stretch with like a cheap rubber band,
I remember seeing those.
My camera's behind the Lysol wipe holding it up, like I was just being myself, and the treatments were all based on helping that person and how they thought I could help them. When someone comes in, how can I help you today? No
matter who they are,
what do you think I can do for you? Instead of me putting myself onto them, it's like, what role do I have in your healing? What role do you think I have in your healing to be part of their process? I think those things, man. And then that just kind of compounded eventually to the point where these influential people, I wouldn't say they sought me out, but I was just next in line where it was like, well, let me try this because this guy has a great reputation and the people that I like go to him and I see his stuff and there's something that I recognize within him. I think we almost assume what successful people think is success and we try to create a picture that looks like that. But like those influential people that I know, we all talk about the same things. It's not about the flashy stuff. We'll be like, yeah, this guy might have 1 million followers, or this guy might have beautifully curated videos with everything looking great. But in his head, he knows how he started was super like ground up. So when he sees something like that, he's like, yeah, that's how I started. He's like, I know that guy's going to be worth his shit because he doesn't care about the intangibles. He just cares about the work. Yeah. And I think that's what those people see in me. That's what those people see in other people. For example, one of my clients, Steve, the tattoo artist, he'll go to these famous people's houses and stuff, and they relate on a very genuine level. They're not relating on the cars they have. They relate on the grind that they had to get there, right? Sure. It's that very like coming up kind of thing. But I think a lot of these new age people, they just see the accolades or they see the success.
They see
the symbols, whether it's the car, the fancy, everything's so fancy. And then they're like, okay, I need to do this to meet those people. It's like, those people aren't looking at that. They're looking at deep down, they're still the same person they were when they got up, and they're looking at what it took to get there. So if they just see like this guy just started out his business and he's got a Lambo, it's like, what the fuck's going on? Like, he's not really about it, right?
Was that a hard, like, when you started to have more influential people kind of reach out to you, was that a hard transition for you? Like, did you have a hard time, like, deciding what way you wanted to go with your business?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, at the end of the day, like, we only think about influential and like this kind of stuff when we talk about it like this. When someone comes in the aspect of like, say like an influential person came training with you, right?
Yeah.
The moment you start to warm up, you're just looking at how the guy's legs are moving, what's going on. Everything just goes back to the work.
Yeah, it just
You,
goes
you,
back.
you
Yeah,
just
yeah,
you just
for sure.
forget who they are, and you're just looking at it because that's all you really care about, right? So I never really had to like, it wasn't like, oh, this person's coming, or now I have these famous people here. How am I gonna like structure my brand to be more accommodating? It was just like, at the end of the day, it's like I'm always just thinking about what's the injury and what do they expect out of me, and like how can I help them? Like that's it, you know. And as long as you keep doing that, in my opinion, things go pretty well, right?
Well, yeah, and it goes literally back to, just being yourself and being the person that you also value and what you think can be a value of other people.
You're not gonna be everyone's cup of tea, man.
No,
That's
you're.
the thing. That's the thing.
Well,
There's
you're
people
never gonna.
that
Yeah.
there's people that will always have something out for how you do it or what you do, and that's the thing. It's like you really have to know yourself. You have to be open enough to not identify with certain things, because as soon as you like, say I identified with cupping, and then something came out saying that like, oh, it's like cancerous for you or something, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like I feel like I'm cancerous. It's like, no, I'm not a cup. Like, like it's something I practice,
Yeah, it's
but that's
something I
not who I am, right? So it's like you have to have some level of detachment to these things, right? But at the end of the day, you still need to know, like, this is how I believe I can help people, is through education, is through understanding, is through modality, is through human touch, is through exercise, and once you kind of know yourself, then you can kind of help people. And the best part is your results are, in my opinion, half the battle is if someone chooses me, I'm already halfway up, because they, for some reason in their mind, they already think I'm the person to help them. That's the whole context effect there. I never even tell them. They found my Instagram, they saw something I said that spoke to some part of them, and now I just have to feed into that and finish that process, versus like trying to tell people this is the way
This
to
is
do
the
it.
only way to
I'm
do it,
gonna
yeah.
go to you, and it's like, man, now you're pulling teeth. People aren't ready for that change. But if they're ready for that change, they find you. Jeremy, I've seen what you've done with these clients. I've looked at all these people, and I love your style. You don't got to change anything. You just got to do what you got to do, because the person's coming to you for you. Right?
100%.
You just got to be yourself at that point. The moment you start, man, I had this guy come to me from high school, and this is like one of the few moments I regret. And he was coming because I don't do a lot of the stuff that's typical in the literature, where it's like, okay, here's the test for rotator cuff. Here's the test to see if this is it. Like, push on this. And it's like, because some of that stuff's so like meaningless. It's like,
Well, it might be outdated too.
well, it might be outdated too. And it's like, what are you trying to get better at? Like, is it a throw? Then let's just get to the throw. Let me just get your pain better during the throw. I don't want to do all these 8 different tests and then graduate you to the throw. It's like, let's just see if you can throw, right? And then break it up into like, let's start with just the shoulder movement, and then let's get the elbow, and then let's throw, right? Where was I going with this?
Just based off of like an old school
Oh
friend.
yeah. So sorry. Yeah. So this guy comes to me, right? And I get nervous because I'm like, shit, this is a guy that I knew from before. He might have an idea of me. And I'm like, okay, well, let's do this one test to see how your shoulder is. And I never do it like how the typical, I always have my own style, right? And as soon as I'm like, okay, let's just put your arm on this and bring your elbow up. Dude, his eyes went fucking way back in his head, and he's like, oh man, he's like, this is what the last physio did. He's like, you guys are all the same. And I was like, man, please believe me, I don't ever do this stuff. Like, my style's a little bit different. I was just doing it because, like, like
I felt like
I felt like I might have needed to like disqualify some things. And I'm like, man, like, you have someone coming in who's just had that exact carbon copy experience 10 times over. It clearly hasn't helped him. And whether it helps him or not, his mindset is like a nocebo effect. It's not going to help him. Yeah. And like, here I am trying to fit the role that I'm supposed to play. And like, if I was just myself, he wouldn't have already had that bad experience, right?
So how did the rest of it go? Did you just totally shift that whole?
Yeah, I tried to, but like, here's the thing, man. First impressions are so important. And like, once you kind of like, and then you start switching up. Like, I went to a therapist one time, and she thought she had a lunch break. And so she's like, oh, I can't wait for my lunch. And then I'm sitting there, and it was her first and only time ever going to a hypnotherapist. And then the receptionist was like, oh, we have someone that just booked in for now. It's like 12:30. And I had just booked in that same day. I saw a spot. I'm like, I always wanted to try this. I have a time for it. And that lady that was the therapist, she's like, oh, and like, I'm like, oh shit, I was looking forward to my lunch. Okay, all right, when's he coming? Or when's she coming, right? She thought it was a chick. And the receptionist like, he's right there. And like, at that point, it doesn't really matter what the person is, how good at their job. Like the whole like, enthusiasm about trying it. I was like, man, like fuck, like this chick doesn't even want to see me. She was so excited for her lunch. Now she's just gonna switch gears and you know, like you gotta be yourself from the get. Live that life. Because now I'm like, do you even want to help people, or am I just another number to you, right?
Yeah.
Not saying that's how I looked at my friend. In fact, it was the opposite. I was so worried about making sure I helped them
You
the
had a good
best that
impression,
I
a good
figured that like
impression.
I should, you know, do more. But yeah, it's I mean, he felt better at the end, so that's what matters.
Yeah, well, it's just like like you said, you learn from those things. So I think that's the biggest thing. Is like you also probably wouldn't have ever, not ever, but you wouldn't have not always known if that was the case either. Like you're like you have to be. It kind of reminds you like, stay true to myself. Like stay true to myself.
Yeah.
Like if I try to be someone different, like these people are not going to be attracted. And you want the people, like you said, that are going to be attracted to you, that want to come see you.
Absolutely.
Dude, when somebody comes in and they're like pumped to see you,
What better feeling? It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing I've looked to change in how I treat is people will always post their story and it'll be like a booking reminder. My experience with physio, man, I was never looked forward to it. And the fact that everyone's like, man, I can't wait for my treatment. I've been waiting for this all week. Like, you created an environment that like people are looking forward to this. Like,
yeah, they're like actually.
they're
wanting
like,
to
man,
come.
like this is all month I've been waiting for this. All week I've been waiting for this. Like, I can't wait for my body to feel good. I'm gonna go for my max on Thursday. The treatment's on Tuesday. They plan it in a way where it's like there's so much behind this treatment, and to provide an experience like that in an industry that was hardly ever seen like that. It was a nuisance to go to physio because it was like, oh, I just got to do this as part of my workers' comp claim or part of my insurance thing.
like,
or,
I gotta do it.
yeah, I don't know if it's really helping, but like I got to do this. It's like, man.
Well, and I think that's also something that stands out for me too, that I try to make is like make it fun for them to come, right? Because a lot of it obviously has to do with who you are and like the education pack, that piece of it. But a lot of it has to do is like you said, the person that you are. So if somebody
Right.
comes to see you and they don't like you as a person, like you can't be their friend, they're not gonna want to come see you at all. Because it's also like a hangout in a way. Like
Totally.
like you're chatting, you're like, oh, how's this going? How's
Yeah.
this going? Like, what's going on in your life? And it really makes such a big value when you can build that relationship. And those people are gonna be so like they're gonna love you forever. They're gonna like be the ones to support you throughout the way.
Totally.
Right? Because you've probably had like, is there any still clients like to this day and like that still come see you since like you started? Like, do you remember of any that like, and that's probably super cool for you.
Absolutely.
Right. And those people are like, you're like my day ones. Like you're the ones
You know what's crazy is and a lot of my clients that promote me, they'll say this. They're like, Krish doesn't want to see you again. And that's a flex. It's like, I don't want to see people again in the sense that I want to see your injury 3 times in a week. I like that's, I feel like shit if I saw you again for the same injury over and over again. Like, what am I doing? Right? Like, I'm not helping your perceptions towards pain. I'm not helping all those things. But the thing is, like, people will continue to book even after I express the fact. It's like, hey, this whole like maintenance thing, you can do your own stretching, you can do your own training. You don't technically, like, this treatment isn't a necessity, But for them, they've created it in their mindset where it's like, hey man, I've been used to having pain. This gives me accountability. I know if I have a treatment every 8 weeks or every 6 weeks, I know that there's certain things in my training I want to ask you about. The treatment itself is a plus. I feel better after it, whether it's placebo or not. I feel better. When I feel better, I move better, and when I move better, I get better results. And I like the catch up, and it's just part of their thing. Man, anyone can cut their hair, but it's the experience. Yeah. And obviously you're getting a way better haircut if you go to a barber versus like just the few stretches you do on your own. If you have a dedicated hour to it where someone's whole intention is to put you through these movements. And the way I talk about it is like, this is the jump start. You jumpstart your car. What do you got to do after? You got to drive it. Otherwise, the battery's going to die. So I just give people that jumpstart. And it's like, all right, now you got another few months of training hard. And then like come back if you need that extra boost again. Do you need treatment? No. Do you need all these things in life? No. But like we do these things because they're ritualistic. They're habitual. They provide certain things, whether it's in our psyche or context. And I think those intangibles are so important, but they're so hardly ever studied or talked about.
Well, and it really stands out to me when, I see anyone in any field like physio or kines or massage or whatever it may be, and they are like, you know what, come see me when you need, like, like, it's not like you need to book in next week.
Totally.
Right. The people that are going to actually be there truly help you, and this is something I believe, they're not going to force you to always come unless it's like hey, you have an injury, we need to work
absolutely
through.
like there's so many specific things where like it's like you have to see someone more often, you know, perhaps. But at the same time, it's like if I've given someone an exercise or like lower back injury, right, and I want them to slowly start building their capacity, so I'll write them a little plan. I always write like my clients a little exercise plan after, specific to them, right? And I'll be like, okay, add this to your thing, ask your trainer if this is okay, and then let's work on this, right? And they'll be like, okay, when do you want to see me? I'm like, well, when do you think you're going to adapt to this training plan? Because I've just given you these exercises. You think you doing them once and then coming to me, like, what are you going to tell me? Okay, I tried it.
I did it once.
There's nothing. Like, come to me after like a month or two. Let me know, okay, after 2 weeks, it started to feel less discomfort. The third, fourth week, I was able to add some load and now I feel pretty strong. Or, yeah, I did it for 3-4 weeks, but I still get that pinch. And then I can give a substitution, or I can, you know, give a little alteration to that exercise, maybe change the form. But it's like, you got to go and do the work, come back to me with some feedback. And with that feedback, I can fine tune the treatment or fine tune my advice to better help you. And when I tell them that, then it makes sense to that person that's like, oh, okay, I thought I'd have to come every week because you're fixing my problem. Now they're thinking, oh shit, I'm fixing my own problem. I'm just coming here to make sure I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
And that's all we are.
It's like
as
an accountability
guides.
thing too, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Right.
Man, you've probably trained people for years. And it's like, I'm pretty sure they know how to do the exercise by now.
100%,
but there's other things that they find valuable, right?
100%.
And who's to say it's like, well, now you're a bad trainer because now they're dependent on you. It's like, dude, it's that person's choice. Like they value it on a certain level. It's not like you've made them totally dependent on you. And if you have, then maybe that's a bad trainer. But the fact is there's something else they enjoy of that process.
Well, I think a lot of people don't look at it as like, this is also the person's time in the week where they can either escape, like, not that it's an escape, but more of the fact of like, they can let their worries, their stresses away. They can come see someone that they like jive with. They can, you know, just be, they're doing it for themselves.
Right.
Coming to see me as for a trainer, like when somebody comes and works, they're doing it for themselves at the end of the day.
Totally.
I'm not standing there like, I'm so impressed you know how to do a squat.
Yeah.
I'm not like standing there like, oh my gosh, like your food plan you gave me, whew, like that was amazing food plan. It's like, no, I want you to show me your failures so I can actually help you. If you never show me the things that are, it's just like if somebody came in to like, you know, Krish, there's nothing actually that I have. I just, you know, but it's like, no, well, obviously you booked,
those are the hardest clients.
Yeah.
And like it's really nice if you got in your body to a point where you got no issues and you just want me to kind of like help you out and move things around a little bit for you. And like, that's always nice. Right. But it's also like, I don't have anything intangible. Like I always look forward to it when someone's like, every time I squat, it hurts. And then after doing the treatment, I'm like, okay, squat. Like I always like to like see like, okay, did we make a difference? You know, but if there's nothing to make a difference on, it's like, well, how do you feel? It's like, well, I mean, I was feeling good before, but yeah, looser. It's like, oh man, like, okay, cool. Like, it's like going to a barber after just getting a haircut. It's like, yeah,
the day after,
it's still fresh. You did a good job, just like yesterday. It's like, okay.
Well, and that's like the whole thing for me is like, I'd rather be someone who can help someone. You feel like this too, that actually has something that either they haven't been able to figure out themselves. Or you just rather than be brutally honest with you and just be straight. Like, hey, I don't know what to do here. I don't know what to do in this situation. When I feel this, I feel it over here or I feel it over here. And it's like, as someone in both these fields, like that's kind of like, that's what we love.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
Those are like the super cool cases. Basing off of all the people we're talking about and things, like what does your business really rely on when it comes to the success that you've been able to build?
Me doing my job right.
Yeah.
As long as you do the job right, you fix someone that's had pain for years or months or has felt like they couldn't do an exercise for years, for months, and now you've given them the ability to do it, they're going to tell people. Everything, onit's that 80-20 rule, right? Yeah. It's so like you got to focus on what the bread and butter of your business is, the meat and potatoes. And like for me, that's giving the client what they want to get out of the treatment, which is feeling better, being able to lift more, being able to, you know, express their movement better. Those things, as long as I do that, everything else kind of solves itself. There's no way I could help 1,000 people and then not see other like indirect effects come from it, right? Or I could just put out as many ads as possible and not help a single person. What's going to help me more?
Yeah.
You know, so the thing that my business relies most on is me just doing my job. As long as I do my job and I help people, they'll tell other people. They'll be the biggest fans. And it's not even like, oh, this guy fixed my shoulder. They might be like, oh, he gave me this exercise and someone else has shoulder pain. They might not even recommend that person to come and see me, but they'll be like, hey, Krish recommended me this exercise. Why don't you try it? And then that might fix that other person's shoulder. Dude, I don't care if they're coming into the clinic as long as people are kind of getting better, because that's the goal. Of course, I need to eat and make money, but there's enough people in Abbotsford that I don't need to see the same person 3 times a week for me to have a successful business. Yeah. I could literally not see any of my clients anymore, and there's still enough people to like fill my business up that I haven't even met yet.
For sure.
That could 100%. Use the service, right? So as long as you have that abundant mentality and you truly believe it, I think you're good.
How do you see yourself shifting moving forward? Like shifting on things, because you're going to get to a point, and you're probably already at this point, where you can only help so many people in a day. How do you see yourself shifting in that way to be able to help more people?
That's a good question, man. I think I've come to the point where I've understood that that's going to be my limitation, and I'm not ready to accept what comes with exceeding that limitation, in the sense that, do I take my services online and just scale and go with, and then have to sacrifice a bit on depth? And by that, I mean like depth is the amount of quality I can provide a person, whether that's human touch, exercise planning, all this stuff. The moment you scale, now I have to reduce the depth a little bit. I might not be able to add the human touch part of it, but I can focus on more just the exercise planning and prescription and reach a wider audience, right? For me, there's a lot of people doing that and are extremely successful at that. And they've mastered that skill. I understand that's a limitation for myself, and I don't want to go that way. So I'm willing to accept that limitation to keep the quality of care that I have in here, because that's what people come here for. Now, if I try to go outside that and just help more people for the sake of helping more people, that's just not a goal I'm interested in. I'd rather just deal with 5 people a day. I don't need to see 10.
So like what does your current schedule look like right now when you come into?
So I work like 5-6 days a week.
Okay.
Yeah, I probably see like 6-8 clients a day, 5 or 6 clients a day. Depends on the time of the clients. Some people book for 90, some people book for half an hour. Yeah. You know, so
it shifts each day.
It shifts. I'm not like back to back, like one client right, the next one's waiting at the door kind of thing, or is like 3 clients in the whole facility and I'm going to each one of them. It's like one client for that one block. That person comes and leaves, and then the next client comes. You know, I don't like feeling rushed. And if I don't like feeling rushed, I doubt my client likes feeling rushed. Imagine you're getting a massage and the dude's waiting outside the door, the next one ready for you. Or worse yet, like these physios and chiros where it's like, imagine you're getting a massage and the guy beside you is getting a massage with the same person, or physio, but the dude's just bouncing around rooms. Like that shit's so common. Like we've accepted it. Like that's part of this. Literally, they're called physio mills. And like, that's the last thing I want to do. And if that's the way to help more people, fuck helping more people. Cause I don't think that's helping more people.
Yeah. Like more
I think that's just
quality than quantity.
Yeah. And like I said, some people do the online thing. Like I know some trainers, I know you do a lot of stuff online, and you guys have found a way to do it where you're not sacrificing quality. But for what I do, people actually come for that touch aspect of it. I'm not going to be able to scale that and provide the same experience. And for me, that experience is just as much important to me, because I feel good when I do that, than it is to the client too, you know?
Well, it's, it's very nutrition coaching in a way. It's like, I'm not any hand manipulation on it. Like, it's easy for me to do a voice memo or go on a phone call or FaceTime, right? So
you're not out there. It's like, oh, that's a little bit more carbs. Let me take some rice away. Let me put this. You needed me to put that rice away.
You got 10 grand a month. I'll be there.
Oh, you need an extra chicken nugget. Just throw that on there. That's an extra 4 grams of protein for you, right? Open what? Just
one person. That's it.
That's it. You just deal with that.
Oh man. Yeah. Well, and you know what, man? The funny thing is I've seen and I've heard of, like, I actually heard this story. It's pretty funny, where there's like, you would hire someone and they would literally come to your house and like, you get a key to their house. You'd like go in at whatever time, wake them up, pull them out of their bed. Like you would literally like, and dude, some people like will pay for that.
Absolutely. I think if you have the financial means to do that and you live a lifestyle where you're so like, you're executive planning, say you handle such a big business and you're dealing with all these other like people, and all your decision making is towards this. this person needs this person needs that, this manager, this CEO, and you're at that level of like cognitive thinking, you don't have time to think about anything else.
No.
And you're kind of like prioritizing your cognitive abilities at some point. And so you're like, okay, I'm gonna give this guy a shit ton of money because I make money like this and it's endless. Here's 10K a month, 20K a month, whatever it is.
Whatever it takes.
You just make my food, tell me what to lift, and I'm not gonna think about it. I'm just gonna do it. Yeah. And then,
Well, and that's like, that's of a different scale. I've heard stories like that too, but I think for even probably in your case too, it kind of applies where, if somebody's ever wanted you to fly out anywhere, or they're like, hey, we'll fly you out to blah, blah, blah. And, we'll have you for the whole week and whatever. Sure. I want treatments for the full week kind of thing.
For sure. Yeah.
Like, has anything like that happened, or have you been able to experience that at all, or thought of ever trying to do that? Have you ever offered like anything like that?
So I've been offered in the sense of like people wanting to come and just reserve a day.
Yeah.
And whether it's for like them and their girlfriend, or like, hey, come to my house. I want you to see my setup. I want you to create an exercise plan for me. And like that kind of stuff happens all the time. And it's usually those clientels that like have businesses and they want to kind of like streamline everything. So the house one is a lot where it's like, hey, can you come to my house? This is the equipment that I have. Can you build me a plan based on what you've seen with my body? Because once you've worked on someone, they have this trust in you that's like, okay, this guy knows what's good for my shoulder and what's not, based on like how it moves, how it hurts. Can you come to my gym and tell me what can I do that's safe for me to do right now? And so I get a lot of that where I'll have to go to someone's house and like see their gym, see their setup, do that kind of stuff. Or they'll just be like, can you come to the gym with me and like do that kind of stuff? Or people will come. The flying out one, it'll always be like, hey, if you ever find yourself here, because like I don't think I'm at that stage where they want to pay for a ticket, but it's like if you do end up in this side of town or province or I'd love to like
that'd be really cool. Just like I think the whole thing with that is just an experience.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and it kind of goes back to once you've worked with, and again, quote unquote influential, because everyone views influence in a different way.
Yeah.
But you get to a point where you also understand that these people are just another person.
Dude, that's literally it, man. And like to allude to what you said like earlier, that's like, did you ever think you'd have to adjust your business? It's like, why are these different humans coming in? Like everyone's the same person, right? We look a little different. Maybe the skin colors are different. Maybe the body size is different. Maybe the upbringing is a bit different. But at the end of the day, like, it's not like you don't have a pec. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, or you don't like, it's just like, yeah, there's certain things you have to understand. But like at the end of the day, it's all just people.
Well, and I think that's the misconception and that's why I asked you the question, because I always like, it's not even a challenge of a question, but it's more to see kind of how someone views it when they've been able to have these certain people come to them as like, if nothing changes for you, then that what you're doing is true and authentic.
Yeah. Yeah, right? Yeah, totally.
Because one person shouldn't influence how you change everything around you, right?
Absolutely.
And no matter what their influence is, right?
Yeah.
Maybe like in our case, we were talking about like if they are like, hey, I want to hire you full time and that's it. But that's also a question you would have to ask yourself.
Here's the thing. So
that's
like,
what you would want to do.
So when I worked on C-Bum, right? Yeah. Chris Bumstead, who's like one of these influential people, right? The thought process is literally the opposite. Is like, I'm so excited to show him what I do.
Yeah, versus how much value you can provide.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yes, and like, so I was the first person to do cupping on him, right? He had never had cupping done before. And he was hesitant to the idea. Because the way he saw it is like, is it going to be a fad? Is it going to be a thing? We did it and he liked it. And he was like, wow, this is a lot better than what I expected, right? Mm-hmm. And that was his kind of thing. And it's like, that's like what I wanted to show and how I felt I could help him based on his needs. I thought it might be an interesting modality to help the pain sensation he was feeling, as well as the other things we did, right? I'm not going to tell him how to train. Like, it's just, I think,
hey man, you could if you wanted, but
yeah. So so like, you see how my shoulder's like this, Krish? Like you need to just angle it a bit in, and trust me, like you'll get traps like mine. Like I'm not telling
five-time
Mr. Olympia, and at the time 1 and then 2 and 3. But like I'm not telling him. Like I think your lat spreads.
Krish, you're looking a little big, but
I mean, like if you really want to take it to the next level, just like But like it's so true to the fact that Steve, the tattoo artist, right? he had one of the famous NBA players come into town, right?
Yep.
John Wall, right? And I've been helping Steve. We've been doing treatments and like exchanging services for years now, right? And Steve's like, dude, like,
Yeah, good friends. Like,
yeah,
you
Steve's
build
like,
a relationship for sure.
John's got a back issue. You know, would you be able to take a look at him, right? I'm like, yeah, for sure. So John was on his way here, right? And Steve's like, hey man, like we did some work on his lower back last night. Do you think you still be able to do what you can do? And I was like, like fresh tattoo. I can't stretch it. I can't put any substance on it. I can't really like train him for his lower back. There's literally nothing I can do. It's literally a fresh wound.
Yeah.
Like there's not much I can do on a wound, right? And so I was like, dude, honestly, next time he comes, we'll do the treatment. There's nothing I can do right now.
Yeah.
He's like, do you want to just like come to the studio and like maybe just like work on his traps or do something like that? Like you could just come by and meet him. And I'm like, dude, like it's just gonna make me look like shit because like I'm just another guy that's gonna come and like rub on his traps. Like
and
that's
like a massage gun or something.
yeah, like that's not what I do. Like my treatment is like, okay, let's see how you move. Let's break things down. Let's do these treatments. Let's test the muscles. What did you work out? Like that's what I do. Yeah. And Steve was just trying to help me out because like,
yeah, 100%.
Like, bro, the optics of working on an NBA player are massive, right? Yeah. And like I might be an idiot for not taking that, but at the end of the day, if I did that, there's nothing John's gonna say in his head. It's like, wow, this guy's really something. It's just gonna be like, he's literally gonna think Steve's just trying to help out his friend, and now his friend came just to rub my shoulders or something. Yeah. And like, I'm not that impressed by like famous people that I need to go just to go. It's like I'm only gonna be like enjoying that experience if I get to express what I actually do. Yeah. Like, you know, it's like, Jeremy, you can go and train your favorite baseball player, but you have to stick to a Pilates reformer. Like, are you gonna do it? No. Like, I don't know, man. Like, you might just think if you really like the guy just to see him, but
yeah, but then I'm like, idiot. But then I'm like, I don't.
You don't do
Dude, I don't even know what to do.
Dude, exactly. Like, I'm just gonna go and like, man, my idea is like an exercise prescription is in these kind of modalities. Like, sure. I want to get in the nitty gritty of things. I want to talk about how you injured your back, what kind of exercises you do already. Like, I want to talk to you about those things. I don't want to just come and rub your shoulders.
Well, I'm someone who's also like a firm believer in like, you know, certain aspects and times, and when you meet people at certain times, and you know, you could say some of it's luck or whatever, fate or whatever you believe in, but you know, maybe for you, maybe that just wasn't your right time to have that opportunity.
Totally.
It doesn't, and in all honesty, man, I think you'll have many more opportunities like that moving forward. Like I do not see that. So
I remember the second or the third time like Sebum came here, and Calvin, who is his social media manager, how I got to know Sebum, messages like, hey, like he's here. Can you do this treatment at this time or this day, right? And I was literally getting a tattoo from Steve. And like, I was like, and it was my forearm, right? Yeah. And I'm like, what am I gonna do?
What are you
like,
gonna do to him? Yeah.
And I'm like, man, Sebum wants to come for treatment, and like I gotta say no. Like, oh man, like that's even worse than saying no to an NBA player because like
they're probably not used to that, man.
Well, yeah, but I don't think Sebum's like, oh, this random therapist playing hard to get.
No, but still.
No, but still, for sure. I agree. I agree. And so I'm telling Steve this because I have the text as he's working on my forearm. And I'm like, Steve, man, like I can't do it, right? And he's like, no, you obviously can't use your forearm if it's just been like, it's like fucking oozing, right? Like it just got ripped apart. And I'm like, damn. So I told him, I'm like, hey man, like the best I could do is maybe like 3-4 days from now. Like, but I can't do tomorrow. Like, I'm sorry, you know? And with the treatments, it's even more specific because there's going to be cupping marks. So when Sebum, he's here, he's getting photo shoots done, right?
Yeah, so he doesn't want
he doesn't want the marks for those certain days, right? So it's like, man, it's not as easy as just being like, oh, just come 2 days from now if he's got to shoot, right? And then so I told Calvin that, and then Steve reassured me. He's like, dude, the first time Future wanted work, I had to say no. He's like, actually, I had to say no 3 times. And he's like, Future's my favorite rap artist. And he's like, can you imagine that? I had to say no. And now he's like, they're super close. Like the day he released his last album, Steve went that day to celebrate with them. Then literally I'm texting Steve to see if he's going to be there for Tuesday for training for our workouts. I'm like, hey, like, what's up? Are you in town? And he's like, I'm in Bahamas with Pluto. And it's like, okay, like it's a whole different. So he went from saying no to him to there. And crazy enough with that story with Sebum, the dude moved his shoot around so he could come for treatment. Was I expecting that? No way.
Yeah, you're like, what?
You know, it was only his second time coming to see me. So, and the first time I saw him was almost like 6 months before that.
It's because you
So
stayed
like
authentic to yourself.
exactly, I'm like, dude, I can't. And then if you see the picture on my IG page of me working on him, I have a glove on this hand and I have the second skin on my forearm while I'm working on him with this, because like I'm like, dude, if you're willing to move your schedule, I'm gonna find a way to treat you. So I wrap that shit up, put a glove on, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna do the sanitary, and I'm gonna do everything with the other arm and find a way to make this work for you.
Well, I'm happy you're talking about these stories because I think it really puts in perspective for people. Like, you know, like I said, we look at these quote unquote influential people and we think that, you know, all the opportunities they got or all the opportunities that they, you know, were part of just happened overnight.
Yeah.
Right. And because that's what we see.
Yeah.
We see the.
Oh, people always ask me, so what was it that made Steve like get famous? And it's like, dude, the guy did everything all the time to his best ability. It wasn't just like one person came in and is like, now it's changed him and now he's on to any NBA player. You think NBA players think like that? Is like, oh, this guy did that one NBA player, now let's all go to him. It's like, they're obviously smart with their money too, thinking, oh, is that guy's work good?
Yeah.
If Steve never had good quality work and wasn't already so good at what he did, he wouldn't have put himself in a situation where those opportunities arise, he can take it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not that overnight success. It might look like that, hindsight, for some people that want to believe it's like that because they think it's just a lucky break, but it's hardly so. You know?
Well, and that's my thing, man. Like that's my biggest thing at the end of the day is when, you know, I've come across even like, you know, NHL players, right? And it's not that they're just at a point where they're doing something different that's televised or that is socially a huge thing. Like, you know, if nothing was ever televised or there's no social media and like most of us, if not half of us, wouldn't even know who these people are in a way, right? Not because we don't think they're influential, but just more of the fact of because as a society we've made it so like when there's a celebrity, it's like, oh my gosh, like this person's like a unicorn.
Totally.
Right?
I was watching a podcast and it was one of my favorite like MMA fighters, Max Holloway. And he was talking about what's changed, like how he's so good now compared to before. Like the interviewer, Joe Rogan, was asking him, was like, yeah, man, like you're so good. And Max is like, dude, I'm still training the same. I'm still doing everything the same. He's like, the only thing that's changed in the last 10, 15 years, he's like, is my mindset. He's like, is my experience. He's like, it's not like I've gotten like my bench has gone up like 500 pounds or something like that. Like overall, his skill is he still has the same training style. He's like, but my mindset, he's like, I can see things better, those things better. And like, those are some of those things that get those people there. It's not something that's just overnight. It's like the dude was in the trenches for 15 years. Like he's fighting in the UFC since he was 20. And then now he's 32. That's 12 years of experience. That experience is what's elevated him. You can't skip that, you know? Mm-hmm. You can't just read a study and get there. Like, you got to put in the work.
100%.
And people like Steve, people like Seabum, like there's things that are gifts, I guess you could say. Like, you know how your muscle belly's insert, you have your genetics. But at the end of the day, to be really, really great, it's a combination of maybe those certain genetics and the ability to do that grind, you know?
Well, no, and nobody sees that, the grind. Like, do you know how many times those guys have probably suffered? Oh. And the downs that they've probably have gone through.
And the only ones we know are the ones they choose to televise. Those deepest, darkest ones we probably don't even know.
Well, and that's why I always say it's so important, like, to just, you know, treat anyone, no matter, as a human.
Oh yeah.
Like just treat him like, you know, just treat him like anyone really else, right? At the end of the day, right? Like, because I think also too, and the reason I like chatting about this is because if there's anyone out there trying to start a business, starting whatever, and you know, you think like this person's gonna make it or break it, like no, it's you who's gonna do it for you. Yeah, totally. At the end of the day, I'm not gonna say that these other people are not gonna give you the opportunities, but you still have to show up as the person, and you still have to show up and do the work. Right. No matter what.
Absolutely agreed, man. Yeah, that's a great point, you know?
Because it's a really tough place to be when, you know, and I've been here and I don't know if you can relate on this, but like, you know, it's easy nowadays to compare yourself to others and what they're doing and like, you know, oh man, I'm not training this person, or like I don't have this client, like but this guy does, and like, or I don't feel like I'm not doing this right, and they look at all their social media stuff and like look what they're doing, and it's also too, we don't know how long it took them, but also
For
like
sure.
you have to work on your journey, right?
Well, I mean, like one of my favorite like stoic principles is like negative realization and like almost like a healthy idea of pessimism. And like that's weird because we always want to think about how good things can get.
Yeah,
But like one
yeah.
of them is like, man, like how shitty could things have been? And the best part, and also bittersweet, I guess you could say, is from what I do here, is it's always a nice like humbling factor when someone comes in. It's like, man, I haven't slept for 5 days, and I'm like, shit, like I've been having good sleep. Like I almost forgot what it's
Yeah.
like to have, like
Yeah, 100%.
everyone that's coming in here is coming in because there's something I can help them with. So like it's always a reminder. It's like, man, this guy hasn't been able to hold his kid up since the kid was born, since the child was born, because his shoulder doesn't allow him to do that. Or this person hasn't had good quality sleep, or this person's taken 3 months off work because of this injury, and now they're like in debt. It's like all these things are such humbling factors. So it's, for me, this job has really helped me stay grounded in the fact that, wow, I have things pretty good. Like there's always a reminder of like things are going worse. And I don't want to say it in a way to be like, oh, my clients are doing worse. Like that's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that you can look at things to make yourself feel shitty, or you can look at things to make yourself feel grateful. It's just how you choose and where you choose to look,
Yeah. So what have you really worked on as someone in that environment of like working on your mindset? Like what's really helped you shift? Like what's changed for you that that you've been able to be this person now? I know, dude, things are going to change. Like we're all going to change as people moving forward, but like what's really you sound very grounded in where you're at. So
I think it's just remembering what helped me become to a certain point and what I'm here for. And I think when I first started, I would like get these like clients. A lot of them were younger because I was obviously younger myself. And there was like a certain buzz. Instagram was a lot more like popular. I was showing up on people's explore feed, and I get these young guys and they'd be like, oh, this is the guy to go to, right? And so they would come to me for treatments, and then I'd text them the next day and be like, yo, how you feeling? Like what's going on, right? And then I remember asking one of those guys, right? So say there's a person A and this person B. A recommended B to come and see me. And then I asked person A, is like, why did you recommend person B, right? Like, what was it? It's like, dude, you messaged the guy the next day. Like, he was so pumped. Like, they don't expect that from like a therapist, right? And I was like, huh. Like, it's the quality of care that people really like someone cares about you. The treatment was good, but the fact that I followed up with someone, that was even better, right? And I think remembering that every time I come in, this sounds corny, but I'll be driving and I'll be like, make sure to listen, make sure to listen, make sure to listen, make sure to listen. And like as dumb as that sounds, when someone walks in, it's like, listen. And so they sit and I just pause and I'm like, all right, man, we'll talk about maybe something like if there was something very small. Well, you see, like traffic's been crazy. They're doing construction everywhere. Like they keep fucking up the roads. Like how do they get paid for this? Make some kind of small banter. And then it's like, yeah, so what brought you in to see me? And then I'm like, whatever it is, don't leave anything out. And it is open floor. And then I just listen. And I think like constantly reminding that is what keeps me grounded and is what keeps me going at the level I'm going. Is like, I'm never letting the experience of treating 1,000+ bodies impact my psyche. It's like, okay, now I know better because I've worked on 10,000 people. It's the fact that I keep going back to what helped me work on those people is like, okay, what can I do for you? And then just clearing my mind and letting them fill it up. Because if you have a question that says, person A has shoulder pain, what do you prescribe? And then you have a question that says, person A has shoulder pain, but it's only when they raise their arm at this level. It doesn't hurt at this time. It hurts more with this. Now it's like, oh my God, you have so much more information. That question all of a sudden is super easy versus, I don't know, right? Like, and that's how I kind of see it. It's like, okay, I can make this case study with very little information if I insert myself. Or I can let that person give me all the information. And now it's like, oh, wow. Okay. All right. Well, based on that, this is what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is. Well, and that's like my thing with, going off of what you're talking about is, it's kind of funny. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but, you'll let someone talk and you'll listen to them and all these things. And then you'll talk to someone or whatever it is and you'll walk out and you're like, I really like this person. But all you did was all you did was listen to them. And because nowadays we have a very like, it's we always want to say the first word and it's, I don't think it's a selfish thing. I think it's just, we just want to be able to be seen.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's, I really deep down, I don't think a lot of people do it selfishly.
Yeah.
I really think a lot of people just don't feel like they're seen, and they just want someone to see them and be of care and be of someone of like value in their life. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I think that is 100% true. I think that's the biggest thing. And they've actually done research where they show in cognitive psychology, and it's how people will perceive people to be smarter. And it'll be like, I'll perceive you to be smaller, and then how much like dialogue you've given in that conversation if you said less. It's like almost like the less is more approach. Like, so the less you said, now I believe that you're smarter, versus like if you just keep like saying shit over and over, and I'm like, oh, this guy's an idiot, just rambling on, right? Yeah. And like, obviously there's like other variables to that, but I think that's interesting is, right? Like if someone can express themselves, then they have a higher rating of the other person. And all I've done is talk, and now I feel like because you've listened, now I feel like, yeah, this guy's a smart guy, he understands, you know, and you haven't even said anything. And so like I try to put myself in that role, and at the same time, I'm not a therapist in the sense of like psychology. People are actually wanting some advice, so I still have to give that too, because they're coming to me in a place of wanting to change, you know. I think the issue comes like you have a girlfriend, right, and she's just venting to you, and she's not actually coming to you for advice. Yeah, and then you start telling her, it's like, well, yeah, just quit the job. And she's like, no, oh my God, just listen to me. That's right? Not the point. That's not the point. When people come here, it's a little bit of both. It's like they want to feel heard, but then once they feel heard, then they want that advice, because they're technically paying for a service.
Dude, that was a huge, like, that's still a huge shift for me, because
just pissing your girl off, aren't you?
Well, like, you know,
how long you been with her?
Over a year now.
You're still learning, young.
Still learning. No, but
young Padawan.
Well, you know what? For me, what it is too is like when you're, and you know this too, because when you're talking to someone and talking to lots of people, like for 10 hours, 12 hours a day, it's really hard to just shift to non-business, like, oh, like I'm like, oh, tell me more. Like I want to, and then they'll ask you a question, and they want feedback. Yeah, like they know you want to. So that's where I run in, is like after a day, I'm like, I just get home and I'm like, oh, I'm still in like, oh yeah, you know, and I'm like, I don't always think of it like that. I've gone better, but that was a really big piece and shift that I'm still working through.
I think it's almost like against our core. Like our core is to like provide advice and provide help, and like
that's why people come see us. They want help.
And then the fact that like you have this and it's coming off exactly like packaged like that, it's like, yeah, I just don't know what to do, and you're like, oh hey, I know what you should do. And then they're like, oh God, of course you do. Yeah. Like, it's like, and then someone else will tell them the same shit, and they'll be like, well, you know, my friend said this, and I really thought that was good, and you're like, I've been saying that. Like, yeah, it's just, I think that's the importance of relationships, though, is to bring out those qualities in you that you won't have to bring out, or you don't necessarily get to practice on your own. Yeah. And so I think a lot of times people get into this like Western world of thinking where it's like very individualistic, and it's like I can do everything on my own. And it's like, yeah, you probably could, in the sense that like, you know, we have the technologies to afford that now, and you might even have a more interesting life because of it. But if you've never been forced to live with someone that has a different belief system as you, you're never developing those skills to be able to handle that. And like you grow as a person to be able to do that. Once you've lived with someone for so many years, you're a different person now than you were not ever having that experience. 100%. And that's what life's about. I remember listening to this TED Talk. This is a little bit of a tangent, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, I love it.
And it was talking about how technology has given us the guise of getting these experiences, but without the attributes that we develop with them. So they talked about three things. They talked about video games, right? And like I like video games, I play video games, but this is just talking in a general way, and how sometimes with youth, right? Video games give you the sense of accomplishment without the attributes that you've gained with them. So for example, you're playing, I don't even know, like Call of Duty, Fortnite, you might have like certain accolades that you get, like this is bronze, this is silver, this is gold, achievement, and it feels like, oh man, I've done something. Yeah. But like you've realistically done nothing. Yeah. Like, you know, it's a sense, and it feeds on, and that's what feels true. Yeah. And so that can stunt people from actually making those achievements in their real life. Like for me to go from a mobile business to being able to get into a clinic, that's achievement. And with that came so many different skills I had to learn. I had to learn about how stratas work. I had to learn about finances. I had to learn about all this different things that normally I wouldn't have to put myself in those uncomfortable situations. So that was video games, and that was for accomplishment. That was probably the least harmful one. Then it was talking about our social needs and how YouTube, Netflix, all those things have been the guise of that. So it's kind of replaced that. So you'll hear it's like, yeah, I just don't want to go hang out with my friends. I'd rather just watch my favorite series. Because now you're watching Friends, and Ross, Rachel, all those people, they've become your friends. You feel like you know them. Those are your characters. That's what feels home to you. Yeah. And you know, when you go and hang out with your actual friends, they might say some dumb shit and you just don't want to deal with it right now. That's because you don't know how to deal with it right now. You're avoiding the actual genuine interaction with people. And with that comes discomfort. With that comes opposing opinions. And now you're like, I just want to avoid it and just deal with my friends, which are like these fucking fake friends on social media. And like, we think that's good. We're being told that's fine, but we're not developing those skills that come with it. And now you deal with someone who has a different political view. Oh, that's a leftist, that's a liberal, or oh, that's a super like extreme right wing. And we have these ideas, but it's like we haven't dealt with enough people to realize that view doesn't make that person. That's just one small view they have on something. They might be passionate about slots, and you're passionate about slots, and now you both love like something in common. Like you don't even get to that point because now you're disqualifying people based on these things. So there's video games for accomplishment. There was Netflix, YouTube, those kinds of things for our social. And then the most dangerous of all is what's replacing our mating is our idea of like pornography and things like that. And it's the fact that we feel like we're getting the
same satisfaction.
We're getting the satisfaction in the sense of an orgasm, right? In that quick fleeting dopamine, or I guess the endorphin, the serotonin release or whatnot. But we're not getting the actual skills you would need to find a mate. Because now we have every mate we could possibly want,
or the connection,
or the perceived connection, without actually doing it. Now, for you to acquire an actual mate in real life, you have to smell good. You have to make sure your personal hygiene is good. You know, you have to know how to bathe. Like if you smell like
make
ass,
effort,
you have to take care of yourself. You have to know how to talk. You have to know how to listen. You don't need any of those things if you're just watching porn. You can get straight to the orgasm without doing any of that. You know, and so that's the same thing. It feels like we're getting that connection, but we're not getting all those attributes. And I feel like that's what's happening is we're seeing women out there complaining men aren't men. We're seeing men out there complaining that women don't know how to like treat a man. And it's just because we're avoiding all these things, and convenience is ruining us, man.
It's instant gratification.
It's that instant gratification, right? It's like how we were talking earlier about like, Cam was saying that this is the antidote to short form things. Cause it's like, you know, everyone wants that short ADHD kind of like information, but they're not willing to sift through it. Right. And
that's my thing. Like the big thing for me, and, there's a few keys that you said here, but you know, going back to, you know, when you see someone on social media and you feel like their friend, right? I think a lot of times this can be of value to you if you actually are who you are when you you know, it's kind of funny. Like I've had people ask me like, oh, like these glasses or my beard or my hair. They're like that they distinctly see that on social media. So then when they see me in person, they feel like they can approach me more.
Yes, 100%.
Right? And I think that's super important if you're there, like, you know, someone who's out there or whatever, and you're trying to like, you know, have other people, and this is kind of more of a growth, I guess, for your business, but you know, being this person you are online, but also like having distinct features about yourself. Yeah, they're gonna stand out. Totally. Right? I had this is a funny story. I had someone else reach out to me the other day. They were like, "Hey, I saw you at the Abbey Canucks game. We've never met, but I've seen you on social media like 100 times or whatever." And I'm oh, like, cool, like. Hey, like come up next to me, like come up to me next time, kind of thing, right? But just like stuff like that, right? And it's like I didn't know, like you don't know who's watching you, you don't know who's like, right? So it's really important to, you know, also be the person you are online. But I also this is the next. It's gonna be way off topic, but you mentioned strata, and I want to talk.
Strata?
I want to talk. I want to talk about. I want to talk about.
So my new passion is mortgages, strata, homes.
Your house. When it burned down.
Oh yeah.
So that's the shift. I it's kind of a we'll ask you a last question after this, and we'll kind of end it from there. But I want you to talk about your.
You don't want to end off on strata?
No, not on Strata. But I do want to hear about your story of your house and when it like everything happened. And I remember when that happened. So it was a pretty sad moment for everything.
So my condo burnt down. I lost everything. Thanks for reminding me.
That's it, everyone. That's all.
Thanks, man.
No, but like, you know, how did you get through these downs, buddy?
Yeah, I
was probably a big shift,
in flames myself, and I just blew it all away. I was just like, this, I'm bigger than this, man. I was listening to Goggins, and I said, you can't hurt me, fire. And I rebuilt the condo with my bare hands, man. That's how I got through it. So
burst through the front door.
Yeah, I know. I woke up one morning to fire alarms.
Yeah.
And man, it's West Abbey. I thought someone just pulled it because like someone was getting jumped or something. So
I just want everyone to leave.
Yeah, so I'm just chilling in my room, and then
whatever.
I'm just chilling, and like even the fire alarms are going off, and then all of a sudden I hear like bop, 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 and I'm like,
that's weird.
That's weird.
Like
and
people
then,
are actually leaving.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm like, maybe someone's. I was just thinking, oh, dumbass is leaving. Like, nothing's going to happen. It's a fire alarm. And then I hear someone scream, get out, fire out. And I'm like, okay, I'm that dumbass. Like, I need to get out. Like, I'm out here taking my time, like, okay. So I grab my stuff and get out. And then you see like smoke coming out of a unit.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like, it's a 80 unit building. Like, fire trucks will come and take care of it. We're all standing outside. It's like 6, 7 a.m. It's cold. Like, just after winter, entering into spring. And then, all of a sudden you start to see like flames come out of that unit, and then flames above that unit because it started on unit 3 and like it's a 4-story building. And then all of a sudden the entire building's roof is engulfed, and there are like 15, 20-foot flames on top of the building. And then there's like 8, 10 fire trucks, and like, dude, this shit's not getting contained at all. And I'm like, oh crap, like this is like,
it's real.
Yeah.
You know? Then you're like, oh my gosh.
Oh my God. They're like shooting water on it. Nothing's making a difference. And then that was one thing, but the worst part was the fallout from it was like, man, we had to wait so long before we could even enter our units again. It's all water damage. Whatever didn't burn was just completely soaked. Walls were like falling through just because of all the water damage. We had to get escorted in with like firefighters because they hadn't done like the integrity of the building testing. So it's like, okay, if you have some super like valuables here, let's get those, but like in and out kind of thing.
Yeah, as quick as you can.
As quick as you can, right? And then on top of that, like the whole strata insurance, like you hear about stories where these companies try to take advantage of you, and you're like, maybe if you're smart enough, you can avoid it. But like, dude, they were charging all the residents a $1,500 removal fee. So it's like, think of this, Jeremy. Elevators aren't working. Only one side access. Entire 4th floor is gone, right? Everything is soaked with water. And they're going to charge you $1,500 if you can't remove the contents of your unit. How does that make sense? How am I supposed to take a bed frame that's water soaked, charred, out of a building that only has one access that's through a sideways stairwell?
And you're on the ground floor, right?
No, I was on the 2nd floor.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, there's literally
you gonna
like,
throw out the window or what?
Literally, and it's like, it makes no sense. And so I own the unit, right? And as an owner, you have to get like certain insurances, right? And so what they're supposed to do is like, okay, well, we're deciding to rebuild this. The time it takes to rebuild, we'll put you in a new place. We have to give you rent because I'm paying into mortgage and I'm paying into my strata the whole time.
Oh, interesting.
Because if I'm paying into strata for the years I'm not living there, I have to be getting something at a return. And that's like, okay, we'll give you accommodations. Either they do that, or if they claim that the building is inhabitable and they can't rebuild it, they'll give you your money back, right? But if they're going to decide to rebuild it, it's like, we'll put you somewhere for now because you still have to keep paying us. And then, but they decided to not pay me. And I was like, what the hell? Because on certain, like my driver's license, I'd have my parents' address, and they tried to claim that I was part of my parents' household. And I'm sending them like the BC Hydro bill. I'm selling them the utilities. I'm like, dude, it's all on my name. Like, I own this place. Yeah. Like, why are you trying to claim that I'm part of like that household, right? And like, I'm so blessed, dude. My sister's a fucking lawyer, right? So my sister literally threatens them, and she's like, look, this removal fee, like this is what the strata documents say. It says removal and moving of contents in case of peril, like in case of this kind of damage, is covered within the strata. And she messaged them saying, if you don't like give my brother, like if you don't give my client that rent that he's owed, that money for moving, I'm going to inform the owners of miscommunication and misinformation within your clause, effective immediately. And the next day they're like, hey, send us where you're going to live. We'll cover your rent. It's like, dude, like that shouldn't be happening like that.
It shouldn't take that.
It shouldn't take, like there's people that actually paid that fee.
Dude, that's sad.
Like
man.
that's
you just
like
lose everything, and now you're like,
now you lose everything, and now
Yeah.
you got to pay $1,500 to like move the stuff you lost. Like that makes no sense.
yeah,
Regardless, so I lived at my parents for a bit until they were able to
Yeah.
cover. It took 3 months for them to be able to give me that okay. 3 months we fought for that coverage that I should have had.
Wow.
I never got that back rated coverage, and then I was able to live somewhere else until it was rebuilt. And now my girlfriend and I, we live on the 4th floor.
Okay.
My dad owned a unit that he also lost.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so now we're in that unit that was rebuilt. So we're renting from my dad, and then I'm renting the unit I owned out to someone else.
Okay, cool.
So it all
Okay.
works out in the end.
So you're back at the place now and everything.
Yeah. I'm back at the place now. It's a good place. It's all rebuilt. It
Yeah.
still has like certain issues here and there. I swear that place is cursed in certain ways. But yeah, we had like burnt embers coming out of our air handling units just like a couple of months ago, and the same thing. It was like 10 fire trucks. They had to like figure out what happened, and no one really knows. And some voodoo going on there, man.
I wonder, do they build on the same structure?
Yeah. So, dude, there's actually a class action lawsuit because they're suing the builders because there's 2 opposing buildings. So my building, the 80 units that was on fire,
Yeah.
and there's the opposing structure. Our structure didn't have fire stops in the attic, so like you need fire stops to stop fire, and we didn't have those. That's why the fire spread. So that's and the building was built in like in '08, so it's relatively new. It's not like 70s.
Yeah.
So they're suing the builders. They're suing the city because we were supposed to get a ladder truck. They're the fire trucks that have the ladders to shoot fire down or shoot water down. Abbotsford only has that stuff by auxiliary, so we didn't get that fire truck until 2 hours. So we had to get our ladder trucks from Langley.
Oh wow.
And so that's why it took such a delay
So
to
long.
get the right thing. So they're suing the city for not like technically they're
Being
not
prepared, I guess.
Yeah,
or-
well, those ladder trucks should be manned by career firefighters. And our city keeps cutting funding to firefighters
So
and
they
keeps
can't-
giving it to police.
Yeah.
And like I have
Oh,
nothing
okay.
against police, but it's like, dude, fund the fucking fire. Like
Yeah.
what's the police gonna do? Shoot at the fire? Like I need fire trucks, man. Like
Create a bomb.
it's like, all right, guys, let's I don't know, let's arrest them or something. I don't know.
Arrest the
Anyway, so
flames!
they're suing the builders, they're suing the city, and they're suing the strata because the unit that the fire started from, it had like an outdoor propane tank and barbecue. And we're not saying that's what the fire started from, but that's not allowed in our zoning for strata. And it was brought up during a strata meeting before, and no action was taken. So they're suing the strata on negligence.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah,
So does that mean like everyone that was part of it, like including you guys, or did you get like a payout because of this?
perhaps. I mean, we'll see. We'll see if the builders or strata or whatever want to settle. They'll probably settle out of court because that's how these things go. They're not gonna want to make a big deal about it and show we built this thing and now we got sued. Like they'll rather just pay everyone out. So, but those processes, like the lawyer that's helping us, he's like, look, I had the same situation happen to me 4 years ago. He's like, that case is still ongoing. He's like, so don't get your hopes up that like you're gonna get all this money or something like that. He's like, this is a long process. And he's like, we just need to get more and more of the owners involved for it to have some weight to it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like it's not as easy winning these lawsuits against these big companies as people think, or But yeah, regardless, like that happened. And now I'm back, and it was weird, man. They say like bad things happen in threes, and that happened. I had some crazy shit happen at the clinic. I almost lost the unit here, and then
Oh my gosh.
my partner and I had our like difference in opinions on certain things, and we had a little split for a bit. And it was just like, man, my whole life seemed like it was crumbling. I lost my place, and I just kept saying, as long as I can work, I'm happy. And then next thing you know, there's developers coming here saying that like pretty much how it works in a building like this, we all own our individual units.
Yeah.
But if majority, meaning if 80% of the owners want to list the property, then they can sell it. And like I just got in here, and the way I have my business is my overhead is at a certain level, which allows me to only take so many clients. If I had like a crazy overhead being in a brand new building, I'd have to change my business model.
And your pricing.
And my pricing and everything. And then
Yeah.
the cost to relocate. And it's like, man, I could, even if I sold this place for a profit, it's still not going to be enough for me to buy a new place. I'd have to like, change everything.
You have to lease probably at that point.
Exactly. So like
Yeah.
that was happening at the same time of me like losing my residence, and then I'm losing my business, and then like my partner at the same time, we're not together at that moment. And like it's just like, man, like life got kind of a little hard at that time,
Yeah. But you got through it.
Oh, you always get through it, yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's the message. Like that's the kind of the message I wanted to like
It's just what you said. You never know what people have been through, right? All that being said, I have a 2-parent home. Like, you know, like I don't live with my parents, but I have both my parents are alive with me. I have good friends. Even if I lost my residence, even if I lost this business,
you have a community behind
I have a
you.
community of people supporting me.
Yeah.
Like there's so much that I had compared to like the other people that lost their home. They had just moved to the province. They didn't have any support.
They had
you
no
know,
family
no
around.
family,
Yeah,
nothing
yeah,
like that. Like that's tragic. All this stuff happened to me. I'm still up. You know,
yeah.
and like obviously I'm stressed. I was the most stressed I'd ever been.
100%, man.
I got my blood checked. My testosterone had dipped. My cortisol was fucked. Like everything was messed up, man. I stopped training. Like everything was messed up. But that being said, I was still in a better position than a lot of people out there in Canada, let alone like the other 80% of the world, like which were like, bro, we run water. We don't even know what it costs us. Like,
Yeah.
like I don't know how much water it costs if I run it for 10 seconds, what that is monetary. Like imagine the luxury of that. Like the most important commodity on the earth, we don't even know what it costs to us. That's crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, it is because
It's just literally wild.
Because we just
have it.
We just have it.
We just have it. We don't even know.
No, I have no clue.
We'll just run the shower for like 10 seconds before entering it because like we got to let it warm up. I do it. I'm sure you do it.
Yeah.
But like it's just when we say it like that, it makes it sound pretty like crazy, right? Like damn, we just out here wasting shit.
Well, yeah, there's like so many going down that rabbit hole. Too.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like-
yeah. A very smart client once told me because I was like going on this track and it was kind of making me a bit more cynical. And he's like, dude, he's like, and then I said, I'm like, oh, first world problems, right? And he's like, first world problems because you're a first world person. He's like, don't expect to have third world problems if you're not living in a third world country. He's like, obviously you're gonna complain about traffic. He's like, because you live in a first world thing. He's like, you're not gonna complain about water quality right now because that's not your environment. And it's like we try to like take other people's problems and make them ours. It's like it's hard because we're not that person, right?
Yeah.
But-
Well, and yeah, it's one of those things where it's when you grow up with it, that's all you know.
Yeah.
Because you've never traveled. I don't know if you've traveled to like.
No,
any
for
other-
sure. And
more-
that's why perspective is so important.
I think that's why traveling is super important.
Yeah.
Especially
absolutely.
about in countries that you've never been to.
Yeah,
Right? And
absolutely.
seen and so.
Have you ever had a place where you went that was like a shock to you?
Brazil.
Brazil.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I was there for a month. That was cool, man.
Wow.
You should go to Brazil.
Brazil? Why?
Yeah, you actually because it's just like people are happy, man. They don't like there's so much poverty, but people are so happy.
Happier. Yeah. It's interesting how that works, eh?
Yeah.
Less is more.
Actually, I want to speak of traveling. I also have another crazy story I want you to talk about. It's your near-death experience.
Oh
in
my
the
god.
water.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of these things that we've talked
So
about.
yeah, that was a time where I almost died and getting drowned in a rip current. Thanks for bringing that up too.
I think people like these,
we
these
just
kind of stories. This is like
forces of nature or what? First the fire, water.
Krish's worst stories ever.
Let's re-traumatize him.
I like people like this kind of stuff. Though. Yeah. I like this kind of stuff.
If they got through all the bulk of what we just said, the
Yes,
reward is
exactly.
them hearing about this.
Exactly.
Yeah. So man, my sister lives in Australia.
Yeah.
And so it was a day like this, like it's rainy, gray, you know,
Yeah,
just messing up all the light for the video. It's a day like this, it just blinds the camera. And so we had like maybe 4 or 5 days left, or a few days left of the trip.
Yeah.
And my sister's like, hey, like let's go to the beach. Like, you know, we just got a few days left. Like, let's make the most of it, right? Like for me, right? And I'm like, okay. And there's a very big like famous surfing beach there. It's called Burleigh Beach in Brisbane, and Burleigh Heads, and they have like these surfing waves, right? So that you have like the waves that are like the normal like 2-3 foot waves that are like pretty big, and then you got like further back where the breaker is for the ocean, like you got like those huge waves that people surf on. But it's a day like this, so no one's surfing, no one's even at the beach.
Yeah, you're like
we're just
alone.
like we're just alone, right? So we go in the parking lot, and wherever we park, that's that big area of like sandy beach right in front of the parking lot. We're like, okay, let's just go here, right? Like no one's really here. Let's just go there. So we go in the water, and like if people aren't familiar with like how you kind of have fun in the ocean is like you have a big wave, you kind of just turn your back to it, and it just shoots you forward, right?
Yeah,
and then
you're
you're just like
chilling.
You're just chilling. You can't really swim in ocean because the waves are so big, right? You're not. Anyway, so the distance between like say me and Cam is like the distance between like where my sister is and where I am, or like let's just say like 10-20 feet, right? Like max. And all of a sudden I'm in like chest deep water, because that's what feels pretty safe to me. And I can swim. I'm not the greatest swimmer, but I can definitely swim. All of a sudden, like a wave comes that looks a little bit bigger than normal. And like it kind of puts me under the water for a second. I was like, oh shit. And then I look, and all of a sudden my sister's like 40 feet away from me. And I'm like, that's weird. And then like where I was stepping, I stepped on an area that had no sand underneath me. And I was like, oh shit, like I guess I just got a little deep, right? Like I got to go back to the sand. And then by the time I even could like think like that and like process my environment, another wave, which was probably like 1.5 times the size of the one that just hit me. And I was completely taken off guard, took in a bunch of water. I come up, I don't see my sister. I'm like, what? I barely see the shore, dude. And I was only like 20 meters, 30 meters from the shore starting out. And so what was happening that entire time is, even though it was drizzling where we were, it was a storm out in the ocean.
Oh, but
so the tide was increasing, right? And so what happens is, as water raises very fast,
takes you under.
Exactly. So the water coming in, it just kept coming in. And normally you have what's called the undertow. The water has to go back into the ocean, drain. But the water was raising at such a high pace in such a high amount that as the water tried to retreat back into the ocean, more waves were coming and pushing that back. So now you have what's called the pressure differential. You have more pressure near the shore that's been building up that needs to escape into the ocean. And so that's what a rip current is now it's like a very narrow meaning like 10 to 20 meter wide channel that goes from the shore straight into the ocean, 100 meters deep. And it's like this dark, deep blue water that literally from the shore to the ocean, it's going about 9 meters a second back. And it's called a flash rip current.
So just kept on like...
You can't swim against it. Olympic people swim at like 8 meters per second, 6, something like that. Like this thing, like even if you swim as hard as you can, you're going backwards the whole time. And so that whole time, I would like it was literally taking me out into the ocean. And like I was like, oh shit, like I tried swimming sideways. I tried swimming diagonally.
And you're exhausted, probably.
I'm exhausted. And normally what you do is you let it take you out to the sea or you let it take you out to the ocean and then you circle back. But like I said, I'm in a surfing beach, dude. There's 20-foot waves behind me. I'm looking at this and I'm like, if that hits me, I'm dead. And it's the first time in my life, Jeremy, I screamed for my life. First time. I've never, ever screamed. Yeah, like not like that. Like screaming, that's yelling where you still maintain your voice. Like I'm screaming. I've never had to do that. And I'm the kind of guy where it's like, I don't ask for help like most guys, you know? And like, you kind of look and you're like, maybe I can figure it out. Let me do this. At that point, I'm like, I'm going to die. I just thought I was going to die, dude. Wow. And then eventually I saw one of the people that came with my sister and I, he's making his way towards me. And like, it just gave me some point of reference that the shore is that way. So I start swimming towards him on a bit of an angle. And then he gets to me, and then he gets into the rip current where I am, because wherever he was coming from wasn't in there. And then he realizes the danger that we're in, and he's like, Krish, we have to get out of here now. And I'm like pretty much dead at this point, so I'm just trying to hold on to his foot, his leg. It's like I'm getting taken under. I'm just like, please, please take me out, take me out. And I'm pulling him down, and he's like, bro, like stop, like you're gonna kill us both. Yeah. And like I know that's what people do when they panic. Like you just want life, you just want air. And like I was reflexively taken over. And like those movies where people like die and it's all peaceful and they just kind of like float in the water and then the white light comes. Dude, no, like my mind had given up. Like I actually thought I was going to die.
But your body,
my body is like reflexively was like, I need to breathe. I need to be alive. And I don't think if I was as durable as I was, like in the sense of like how much mass I had, I wouldn't be able to like
do it,
resist all that, you know? Because it was just my body on autopilot. And eventually we get to the point where my feet can touch the ground. And it felt like I was doing lunges with like 200-pound dumbbells. It was like every step was like a heavy lunge. I get to the shore. I take it in so much water that at that point, I'm dry drowning. So my body has so much acidosis, so much seawater in me that it's trying to breathe out the acid and it's not trying to actually take in oxygen because your body wants to expel all the water. So you're just hyperventilating. And what happens is if you just breathe out and you don't breathe in, you're going to pass out, right? And so that's what was happening. So the guys on the lifeguards on the ATVs come and they're like, don't fall asleep, don't fall asleep, don't fall asleep. And I'm like trying my best not to fall asleep. And I'm like, I'm trying. And then they put me in the ambulance and they're like, we're going to take you to the hospital now. Is that okay? And get this, the reason they asked that is because insurance. So like, I'm pretty much dead. I'm like, yeah, do whatever you got to do. Like, yeah. But when I tried to get my, like, all that stuff covered, because it's out of country, it was like thousands and thousands of dollars. They were like, oh, it was a voluntary decision to go to the hospital. It wasn't an emergency. And I was like, bruh, like, how was that not an emergency? Like, I was like pretty much dying. And they're like, no, it doesn't count because you were in the right mind to say that you wanted to go to the hospital. And I was like, I don't even remember that. Like, I honestly don't remember. And like, I'm just happy to be alive. So like, whatever, like I paid what I had to pay. But they just kept sending the bills, man. It was like 2,600. I'm like, oh wow, that's a lot of money. I'm like, fuck, that's crazy. And it was like the stay at the hospital. Then I get another one for the same amount. It's like, oh, that's the ambulance to the hospital. Then I get another one that's the same amount. It's like moving you from ER to a holding room. Then I get another one for like 500 for like the X-ray of my chest. Then I get another one for like the blood test. I'm like, yo, it's like 10K, man. Like, throw me back in the water, like, bro. Like, it's crazy. Like, if I knew it was gonna cost that much, like, I would have tried to survive on the water. Like, shit, man, I'm so cheap. I would have figured out a way. I would have been like, I can do it. No, don't take me. I mean, realistically, no. But damn, that's a lot of money, man.
Yeah, like, but and that's sad.
Oh, and then the reason was like, you know how I said we parked where it was? Further
They tow
down.
your car or something?
No.
Just adds to the.
Threw the car in the water, right? So I could hold on to it. And the reason why the lifeguards never even entered that water is that area we weren't supposed to be swimming in. So further down the parking lot where you can't see, they had these like markers where it's like, this is the safe swim zone. Because the area we were in just became a hazard. It was known to cause rip currents during storms. But it was literally like, you see how this parking lot is here? This is where we were swimming. We just assumed like, oh, you know?
Yeah.
We didn't even see anyone at the beach, so we didn't know. And the lifeguards that came, they're like, hey, look, we lost. It was in May. They had lost 3 lifeguards trying to save people in that year. And as soon as they look, they kind of do a risk assessment. Like, the guy looks like a kind of big guy. If I go and try to save him and he pulls me under, I'm going to die. So I'm not going to do it. Which, all fair to them. I probably would have killed both of us if a lifeguard came to try to help me.
Yeah.
You know, because like you're not in the right mind. Like, you're literally off reflex.
Yeah. Wow.
It's like you touch a hot stove. You're not thinking to move it away. You already move it away. Like, it's just
your body's
signal
just
goes to the brainstem and right out. You don't have time to interpret it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing those stories.
Yeah.
Man.
No, thanks for bringing it back.
It's good to relive.
Yeah.
I think you know what I like these stories because it also kind of like you look back and like all the, like you said, you go through all these stuff, you go through these things in life.
Makes you who you are, man.
Makes you who you are, exactly.
Now I get clients come in, I put them in the water, like, this is how you get stronger.
This is how you do it.
Yeah, where do you live again? I shoot a fire at their house. Recover from this. Resilience. Just you want to be like me, Chris? This is how you train. Fucking expert.
That's awesome. Well, you know what? I'm gonna end it here because I think it was good, like story time with Krish.
Yeah,
that's what
for sure, man.
The last titles were gonna be.
Yeah.
But I just
one thing I will say.
Yeah.
The lesson I learned from that, because like, you go through that experience and you're trying to figure out what did this teach me, is that even if I was a better swimmer, even if I had like more knowledge of what rip currents were, I wasn't getting out of that situation unless I had seen that other person. I had no point of reference for the ocean, right?
Wow.
So what that taught me was there's times in life where you need help. You can't do everything on your own. And I vehemently refuse to believe that in so many of my things. You're looking at a guy that started his own business, never worked for any other clinic. Everything I did was on my own. Obviously, I had environmental help. Like, I grew up in a nice home too, right? Like a middle-class home kind of thing. But I would never try to ask. It's not like, oh, here, give me money for this or do this. Everything I try to figure out on my own. There's certain situations in life where you need to humble yourself and ask for help, because that's the only way you're getting out of it. And whether it's someone with addictions, whether it's someone going through something really hard in life, I had no choice but to scream out for help, man. And if it wasn't for me screaming and then him hearing me scream and then even just coming in the thing, it's not like he picked me up and took me out of the water. I still had to get myself out. But just having that point of reference, just knowing that there was someone else out there, that helped me to the point where it saved my life, dude. So like, that's what I took away from it, is like, sometimes, dude, you got to humble yourself and ask for help. Otherwise, life doesn't care. It'll take you away, man. So
good lesson. I like it.
Yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
I usually how I finish these here is just we're gonna give you a plug so you can plug yourself and
Yeah.
tell everyone where they can find you. But yeah, like, I just want to thank Krish for, coming on and taking the time to have a conversation and talk about his experiences and, him as a kinesiologist. But I'm going to leave it up to Krish here now to just plug himself. And where can people find you? How can people book if they want to come see you? Like, how can we?
Yeah, so my Instagram is at kinkrish, KINKRISH, all one word. My website is kinsulting.com, so KINSULTING.com. That pretty much has all the info you need, just those two. I have a TikTok. I don't really use it. My girlfriend runs it for like the promotion and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's Kin Consulting. I don't even know what it is.
It's something like
but
that.
yeah, like usually I'm most active on IG, Kin Krish, and then Consulting has all the info to book and all that stuff. Like
and you're
that
still
too.
taking new people?
Yeah, still taking new people. You might just have to wait a tiny bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get cancellations all the time. If you go look on the booking calendar, I work Sundays, which people love to come in. It's typically like a rest, relax kind of day. And I work late on Wednesdays. So if you have a 9 to 5, I do work one weekend and I do work one evening late. So I try to accommodate people.
Nice.
So yeah.
Well, I just appreciate you coming on today, buddy, and having the conversation. But again, if you want to find Krish, he's laid out those Instagram and the website. But I just want to thank everyone for listening to episode 10 of the North Star podcast, and hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Thank you.
Thank you.